So the National Football League is obviously one of the most popular sports in North America, and it has been for quite a long time, but recently, just a couple of weeks ago, it's been attracting a lot more attention than usual, and not for the reasons that you may just think. So on Sunday, September 24th, an overwhelming majority of the 28 NFL teams that played that day silently protested the American national anthem after hearing comments from Donald Trump just a couple of days ago, which was the Friday, where he spoke at a rally for a senator that was trying to get reelected in Alabama. So I'm just going to go quickly to what Trump said to give you a little bit of context.
And this is when he went after, without using his name, Colin Kaepernick. Take a look.
Oh, you can't see it.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL on?
Well, you can just hear it anyway. It's just him talking.
When somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired! When people like yourselves took...
Okay, so that was the, kind of the fire starter. I'll get back to my PowerPoint here. So these protests aren't anything new. This started in the preseason of last year, 2016, with Colin Kaepernick, who you heard Trump just mention there. It started the very first game of the preseason, which was in late August. Kaepernick, for the first 2 weeks of the preseason, sat on the bench during the national anthem, and nobody really noticed. The media didn't show him on camera. People weren't talking about it after the game. But then in the third week of the preseason, after talking to some of his teammates who thought that it was a little extreme, Kaepernick decided to just take a knee and kneel on the sideline right beside his teammates who were all standing during the national anthem. So what Kaepernick did then was obviously he was asked right after the game why he did that, and this was following the police shootings of men of color in Dallas. You may remember there was riots there. Kaepernick said basically that he wouldn't stand for an anthem of a country that oppresses people of color so much, and he wouldn't show any pride in being American until these issues are addressed. So he went on to say that it's bigger than football, now it's a social issue, and he's just the first athlete in North America at least that kind of brought these social issues to the field and started making it like, making you aware of it, I guess. Just the common sport fan who wouldn't always pay attention to these political issues, sometimes like I do. I don't always, turn on CNN and Wolf Blitzer and all this stuff, but every Sunday, you bet I'm watching, like my Seahawks game or the Titans or another sport like that. So just brought a new awareness to some people who usually wouldn't be aware of these kind of things. So he was immediately met with support from other NFL players. At this time, it was all players of color. So you'll see here, this is Colin Kaepernick, and that was the first week of the preseason where he took an East. That was week 3. He was met with support the very next week by his teammate Eric Reed, who was kneeling beside him, and Marcus Peters of the Kansas City Chiefs raised his fist the week after that. So throughout the season, maybe a dozen more players also protested silently in the anthem. Some took a knee, some raised their fists, some sat on the bench. But what they were all doing was protesting the American, not the American flag, the American national anthem, because of the way America was headed. After Donald Trump was named president-elect in November, a lot more NFL players did this, and about 15 in total did this throughout the 2016 season. So obviously the NFL went into their off-season in February after the Super Bowl. Nothing much was made of the anthem protests during the whole off-season, obviously, because there's no anthems to protest. So it started up again a little bit in the preseason of this year, 2017. More players were doing it, but it really escalated when Trump made those comments on Friday the 22nd. Sunday the 24th was when we saw a lot more protests. So on Sunday the 24th, nearly 80% of all NFL players that stood on the sidelines that day protested the anthem at some point. Obviously, lots of people of color, a lot of Caucasian men and other races that playing in the NFL did this too. So these were the three that I found the most striking. One of the first games of the day was the Pittsburgh Steelers playing the Chicago Bears. The entire Steelers 53-man roster stood in the locker room and didn't even go out on the field for the national anthem, except for this man who is Alejandro Villanueva. He served 3 tours in Afghanistan as an Army Ranger before playing in the NFL and donates his entire NFL bonus salary to a Wounded Warriors Foundation. So he stood out in the tunnel. He was the lone man out there. He had his hand on his heart during the anthem. After that, he said he regretted his decision and he wished he stayed inside with his teammates to show more unity. So the next one was the Seattle Seahawks and the Tennessee Titans playing that day in Nashville just a couple hours later. As you can see on the sidelines, there are absolutely no players. Both of the teams stayed entirely in the locker room during the anthem, and they walked out linking arms to show unity. And then on Monday Night Football, which is the only game on Monday night, so a lot of fans are watching this one. It's on prime time. It's on ESPN. The Arizona Cardinals and the Dallas Cowboys both showed a full team unity protest. The Cardinals, who were at home that day, stood on their end zone linking arms, as you can see, and the Cowboys, who in the middle you could see the guy in the blue suit, that's Jerry Jones. He is one of the richest men in the world, and he owns the Cowboys as their general manager. He also took a knee and linked arms with all of his players and staff during the national anthem. So these protests were exclusive to the NFL. I wrote this speech a couple of weeks ago, right after we got our assignment, and when I was writing at that time, I said, this hasn't spread to other sports yet. Well, on Saturday, that all changed because J.T. Brown became the first player in any other of the 4 professional sports leagues, which is the MLB, NBA, NHL, and NFL. So out of the MLB, NHL, and NBA, J.T. Brown became the first player to protest the anthem, and he did so by raising his fist during the anthem on Saturday night in Tampa Bay. So the crossover between politics and sports here is something that I haven't seen as a sports fan before, but it did make me take notice too that these things just can't be ignored. And even though I like to pretend I'm in my Canadian little cocoon and that, even you have to take notice to these things. And when 1,000 out of the 1,300 approximate NFL players, who are some of the most popular people in America, and now people in other sports as well, start to take a stand against something they believe that isn't right, and they do so in unity, it's something that we all have to take notice of. Thank you.